Good morning and Boker Tov. This week's Torah portion begins with Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, addressing the Jewish people before his passing. And famously, he gives them words of rebuke, of admonition, reviewing their past mistakes, failures, sins, and encouraging them to change their ways and to not repeat these mistakes after he passes and they enter into the land of Israel. And our rabbis point out how Moses rebukes the Jewish people sensitively, compassionately. He references locations that they sinned with the golden calf, with the spies, but not mentioning it explicitly, but only making reference to it, to remind them, to learn from those mistakes, but not to shame them, not to embarrass them. And our rabbis talk about the importance of knowing how to give proper rebuke, or today we would call it constructive criticism. And even almost 2,000 years ago, in the time of the Talmud says, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, I don't know if there's anyone today who knows how to give proper rebuke. But then Rabbi Tarfon responds and says, I don't know if there's anyone today who knows how to receive proper rebuke. And so knowing how to give rebuke is an art, and on the other hand, knowing how to receive rebuke is something that is very important. As King Solomon says, receive and love rebuke, because it will elevate you to the proper stature. I want to share with you a story. There was this young man who was a great Torah scholar, very learned, and he got married to a fine young lady from a wonderful family. And a few weeks after he got married, he came to the rabbi in the yeshiva where he was studying full time. And he said, I have a problem. The rabbi said, what's the problem? He said, I'm having some marriage issues. So I'm sorry to hear that, you're newly married. What's the issue? He said, I'll tell you. He says, after dinner, my wife cleans up and she gives me the garbage to take out the garbage. And I don't feel it's proper for a young man like me who's such a Torah scholar. It's beneath my dignity and my honor to be taking out the garbage. And so my wife and I are arguing about this. And the rabbi saw that this young man is very arrogant and conceited. The rabbi said to him, I agree with you. A man of your great stature, of Torah knowledge and scholarship, you shouldn't be taking out the garbage. The young man smiled. He was very happy to see that he was correct. He immediately went home and told his wife, the rabbi of the yeshiva agreed that I shouldn't be taking out the garbage. They had dinner. At the end of the dinner, they're cleaning up, and suddenly there's a knock at the door. They go to open the door, and who's standing at the door? The rabbi of the yeshiva, the head rabbi. And they say, Rabbi, what brings you here? And the rabbi says, well, someone has to take out the garbage. You see, the rabbi didn't rebuke him or admonish him. He showed him by example. He admonished him indirectly in a sensitive way to teach him a much more effective lesson than by actually just admonishing him for his arrogance. But there's another side to the coin. And that is, yes, it's a mitzvah to help somebody improve, to show them the proper path, to guide them, to point out if they made a mistake in a loving way that they will hear it and receive it. But on the other hand, we have to be very careful not to jump to a conclusion too quickly. Sometimes we're too quick to criticize or to judge or to admonish and rebuke. We always have to give people the benefit of the doubt and make sure we know all the facts before we rebuke and admonish. There's a story told Rabbi Shimon Schwab that he was a great rabbi, and one day he's walking in Manhattan, and in the window of McDonald's, he sees one of his congregants, a religious Jew, someone who prays and keeps Torah and Shabbat, and he thought he was kosher, and he sees him eating McDonald's. He's shocked and very disappointed. And from that day on, every time he saw this congregant in shul, he would think to himself, what a hypocrite. He pretends to be an observant religious Jew, and then he eats at McDonald's. A number of years later, he gets a call from the wife of this man. My husband was hospitalized. He's not doing well. The rabbi goes over to the hospital to visit him, and he says, what's the matter? He says, well, I suffer from terrible ulcers, and one of my ulcers erupted, and I ended up here in the hospital. And he said, Rabbi, I'm embarrassed to say this, but because of my ulcer, sometimes the pain is so burning, and it could be life-threatening. And so under Jewish law, if your life is in danger, you could do anything. And he says there have been a number of times, unfortunately, I'm sad to say, that I was walking down the street in Manhattan and I got this burning ulcer and I had to eat something immediately because my life could be in danger. And I had to go into a non-kosher establishment to eat. But I've been suffering with these ulcers my whole life. Rabbi Schwab said he realized how badly he failed in judging this fellow Jew and how he totally misunderstood. And so on the one hand, if you see someone doing something that you could help them improve with constructive criticism, by all means give it. Give it in a loving way, in a compassionate way, in a wise way that will have its impact without embarrassing them. On the other hand, be careful before you judge, to make sure you know the facts and to speak to the person first before you draw conclusions. This is what Moses, our greatest leader, teaches us in this week's Torah portion. Have a wonderful day.